All right. I guess with that, we'll
Chris and
get started.
Dustin, it's all yours.
Perfect. So
Sounds
awesome,
good.
guys. Thanks for making time out of your day to be a part of this training. Kind of consider this our first Wildland team meeting. Um, team's gone through quite a bit of growth on the back end, try and make sure that we're taking care of everybody for when we do get deployed. So your guys' patience, kind of waiting to see how all this is actually going to develop. I hope you guys get some clarity with this PowerPoint, as well as some of the SOPs that have been written to provide guidance for all you guys and gals. So this is our first ever 2020 Wildland team meeting. And also easily at any point, if you want to speak up or throw in your 2 cents, I think that'd be appreciative by all the team members as well, and myself.
Yeah, definitely. I think we'll be bouncing ideas back and forth.
Yeah. And just before we get started, and I'll talk about any objectives, we really want this to be interactive. I understand a lot of you have never been on deployment, so it's kind of a foreign thing. Hopefully we get some clarity, like I said, with this PowerPoint, but really any question is a good question as we start to build this team up for the potential to go to fire like the picture we're seeing right in front of us. So let's get started. So objectives and talking points. We're going to do a quick 2019 review. We're going to talk about what goes into our red bag and why. What goes into our personal bag and what should we put in it. What goes into your line gear. How does the availability list work and the expectation after you sign up. We will walk through a quick process for when an order for deployment comes in and how it is processed on the back end. It's quite the process. We're dealing with multiple states, multiple dispatch centers. So I want you guys to just kind of understand that sometimes these things do take time to have the order come through. We'll discuss travel to an assignment, working on an assignment, and then travel home from assignment. Continued. We'll discuss the general expectations for engine boss. And we currently have 2 firefighter type 1 trainees, and the rest of us are all firefighter type 2s. I got Richie calling me. I'm not going to answer it, but he's probably having a hard time getting into the Zoom training. Then we're going to discuss different types of assignments. So we all want to go to a big fire, right? That's the end goal. But you can also get orders for a severity assignment, which we'll talk about, and a staging / pre-position camp assignment. And we'll discuss those in detail in the coming slides. We're going to go over some common terminology in the wildland. We're going to discuss our SOPs throughout this presentation. I believe there's 2 different slides that will cover all 3 of them. And then this is just for anyone who is not able to make the live training. If you don't attend the live presentation, you'll need to contact Firefighter Frayne or Firefighter Easley to discuss this presentation after you watch the recording. So it's encouraged for you guys to take notes, ask questions throughout, and then email questions to the Wildland team at frfr.co. And with that email, when you email us through that, you'll be reaching out to Chief Cronholm, Lieutenant Jennings, myself, and Firefighter Easley. We're hoping that that'll streamline and create less work for the team leads on their 4-day. So you should get answers back promptly, or of course you see us at shift change and you want to ask questions. We're always available. All right, 2019 year in review. Not much to talk about here, guys. Some of the big things. me personally, I believe he's on the same page. I wanted to get one person out last summer, even if it was one day on a fire. And we did that. We sent 2 members to a prescribed fire near Red Feather Lakes. I was lucky enough to attend that first day, and then firefighter Rodriguez went that second day. Obviously, we all read the news that prescribed fire escaped due to erratic weather. So firefighter Rodriguez got to experience that, going from a prescribed fire to then declaring it a wildland fire. Pretty rare that happens, especially on your first ever assignment. So just lets you know it's very, a lot of things can happen on wildland fires or prescribed fires, and things can escalate rapidly. Built our foundation. And that's all that stuff I'm talking about on the back end with the conversations that we had with Chief Cronholm and Chief Gavillo to kind of make sure that we're covering every member with the items that they need if they do go out. So you're going to be seeing a lot more of that with the line gear, with stocking of the brush trucks that could be used as mutual aid, and then overall education. I felt that was a really big one, so we can understand the difference between what we're used to on the structural side and what is expected on the wildland side. They're 2 completely different beasts. Even the culture is different. So hopefully we cover a lot of that here. And then as far as national fire activity, it was very slow in 2019. I did a screenshot here of a wildland website, NIFC, National Interagency Coordination Center. And as you can see here, 2019, nationwide to include Puerto Rico, Hawaii, and Alaska, there's only 50,477 fires. And then total acres burned, we're looking just under 5 million. So that's actually low. Pretty low compared to 2018 when we had 58,000 fires and we burned closer to 9 million acres. So some say that's catch up that we're going to experience in 2020 with fires, and they could potentially make up for that slow year last year. It's all kind of a wait and see. And then this website here, I just want to kind of break it down for you guys. You can go back all the way to, I believe it's 1926 to see amount of fires and acres burned. Just some statistics for you guys to peruse on your own. Usually I will be releasing an email with just a bunch of wildland specific websites that are super informative if you guys want to check those out when they become available. Oh, let me pull up my screen again. I was afraid it was going to kick me out for every link. Bear with me. So what I'll probably do, because this could take a little bit of time, is we'll send those links out in that email. And you guys can peruse them. I don't know that I'll keep going through them within this presentation. Oh, come on. Any questions so far?
Negative.
Nope. No questions.
So guidelines for packing a red bag. Before I start, I want to make sure that that you guys understand there's some essential items that do need to go in there. And it's also based on what your assignment is for the day. If we're assigned to the engine and we're not going to be working away from that apparatus, there's option to fluctuate these items. person having the in say on that would be your engine boss, who could be someone from Frederick Firestone, someone from Platte Valley, someone from Greeley, anyone within our IGA. So let's start. So keep in mind the following items. Okay, your red bag needs to weigh no more than 45 pounds. If by chance it is a busy season and our host agency, what I mean by host agency is the agency that's providing the brush truck to deploy with, decides to leave that brush truck in California and fly home, and then a new crew would fly out. Okay, it's very common that we do that. It saves on fuel and vehicle maintenance, driving back and forth. So you need to understand that the bag needs to be under 45 pounds and that all FAA rules apply. So you could run into some issues with checking your bag because you have fire sit on there. You need to have your red card present. And that's something we can talk about more and more as the team progresses. Also, if you get a helicopter ride into a fire, the Helitech crew may make you lighten your bag. Helicopters are only allowed to carry a certain amount of weight depending on atmospheric pressure and cloud level and elevation. And that's what that crew's job is to do. They're there to make sure that they're within this weight range so that helicopter can operate according to the conditions that they're flying in. And that's a whole briefing in itself. But I just wanted to touch on that because that's some stuff I've ran into over the years. So if you get a helicopter assignment and they're flying you into this remote fire, they will be putting your belongings, red bag, sleeping mat, water, whatever they can fit in these sling loads, these netted baskets or cargo nets, and they will be hooking that up to the bottom of the airplane. And that's where fiber tape is our best friend. They will use fiber tape to tape up all your stuff and make it nice and neat so that cargo load travels well. aka sling loads is what they like to call them. Then here's a little joke. Usually, or Potter, you probably know the answer to this, but I always like picking on Helitech. They're kind of used to it. But you guys know what LCES stands for?
I think lawn chairs is the first one.
Yeah. So they like to locate cooler and establish shade as quick as possible. So I always like to crack on them. Those guys, they work hard as anything, but they don't have the opportunity to always go and fight the fire on the front lines. They're more on the back end, making sure logistical needs are met by the incident. And then here it is. There's all your personal belongings right there being flown in to a fire. And they can actually release it. If you see right here, there's a little hook that runs a cable up to the pilot. He has a button he can press and he can drop that once that cargo load hits the ground with a spotter on the ground.
That photo there is helicopter. It was a complex fire in Gasky, Oregon, and they're slinging loads out to all the remote lightning strikes for all the crews.
It's a pretty cool assignment to get a helicopter ride into a fire, spike out, which we'll talk about, for your 14 days or 7 days. And really, it's an experience that I've missed, to be honest with you guys. It's a lot of fun. So you guys can see this picture. This picture is typically what a briefing looks like in the morning at any kind of incident, type 4 even, type 3 and up, definitely. Everyone's wearing their Nomex. Everyone either has a hoodie on or their Nomex shirt. And the person talking is either operations, the weather guy, or the incident commander of the whole operation. So it's kind of what you expect, a lot of dirt, a lot of dust, a lot of random tents being set up. But let's make sure we know what to put in our red bag. So essential items. So all of you being on the Wildland team should have 2 sets of Nomex. If you don't, for whatever reason, let myself or Easley know. We need to work on getting you guys that, because you cannot get deployed without having the 2 sets, or your life will be miserable. It's nice to change. And then also, it's a lot of this is engine boss dependent. If you have a long drive, that engine boss may not require you to be in your Nomex pants and your Wildland boots. He may say it's okay to wear shorts for the first day and then have tennis shoes on. It's all dependent. So you must bring both pairs of Nomex. Camping tent. Sleeping bag, R value of 2 minimum. And I have a chart for the R values in the next slide, in case you guys are wondering, but the bigger the number, the bigger the R value, the warmer it is. A pillow, if desired, small, compact is best. A sleeping mat, R value of 2.5 or higher. Extra socks. So it really depends on how often you want to change your socks. I was an every 3-day guy. Some people were an everyday guy. So it all depends on how often you want to change your socks, how well your feet are doing. If you're getting blisters, you probably want to change those socks out a little bit more, because you're going to have protective mole skin or second skin on your toes or heel. Undergarments, same thing. How often do you want to change them? Extra t-shirts. So I would think 2 would be the absolute bare minimum. I would lean more on the side of about 7. Just because you get sweaty, you're gonna get them dirty, and it's nice to put on a nice fresh shirt, especially day 6, day 7, day 8. You're starting to get really fatigued. I always like keeping trash bags in my red bag so I could separate my dirty clothes from my clean clothes. It's just a personal preference that I liked, and I saw a lot of my colleagues doing that. It seemed to work out. As well as if it's raining, you can throw your red bag in a trash bag to keep it dry. Raincoat. Toiletry items. Okay, at big fire camps, they usually have a supply of some of this stuff. I've personally never gotten a toothbrush or toothpaste from them, but I have seen deodorant, wet wipes, and Gold Bond provided at the medical tent within the incident.
I think the wet wipes are the key. Wet wipes. If you're gonna bring anything to help keep yourself clean, wet wipes. You know, they got the dudes. They have the other ones. It goes a long ways than just keeping, get those hard to reach areas. Keep the chafing down.
Yeah, guys, if we start to chafe, it can become miserable. And I hope you all understand what I mean by chafing. It's just basically a rash where skin rubs, and tell you what, it can be miserable. So prevention up front helps solve that problem. And then the Gold Bond for both your feet and your undergarment area is it's a must. Moleskin. You guys know what moleskin is? Nobody?
Sure.
Yeah,
do.
I do.
Okay, cool.
Sure do, Ferner.
Richie, good to hear your voice, man. Glad you got logged in.
Oh, me too. Sorry, buddy.
Hey, you're good, man. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
So moleskin, right? We start feeling that hot spot on our toes, on our ankle, on the arch of our foot. We need to notify our engine boss and say we need to take off our boots and we need to attend to this before it gets too bad. Moleskin works good. I always wrap mine with duct tape just so it would stay on. But then you also got that liquid and second skin, which works really good as well. I would also wrap that with a heavy duty tape so it wouldn't fall off. And then let your feet dry out at night when you're sleeping. So what I mean by that is taking off your socks and let your feet dry out while you're sleeping.
And just a reminder, we're in these boots, we're working, 15-hour days, but we have rehab, we have truck checks in the morning. So we're sitting 16 plus hours in our boots. So definitely take care of them at camp.
Yeah, one of my first assignments would have been, I think, 2007, 2008, somewhere in there. My foot got so blistered that they actually kept me back at the rig, and I had to stay at the rig the whole day. And I could see the fire, but I was not allowed to walk up, and that was heartbreaking. All the guys and gals are up there working, and I'm sitting there with busted up feet. So don't be me your first couple fires, okay? Warm coat, a beanie, and then I always like bringing a set of normal clothes, because on your ride home, you're probably going to be staying at a hotel just like you did on the ride out, if that travel is long enough to warrant that. And it's nice to get out of your clothes and sit comfortably and go to a normal restaurant. And again, all that is dependent on what the engine boss wants to do or how he or she operates. But typically speaking, I know that I would allow us to get out of our clothes at that hotel and go enjoy a nice meal without big bulky boots on and dirty Nomex. So up top here, see that R value chart. It's a good reference for what R value protects you against what temperature. This PowerPoint will be made available for you guys to use as a reference. So hopefully that clarifies the R value thing. And then this picture here is what a ICP, incident command post, looks like probably in the middle of the day with not a lot of resources here. So you can see back over here with these blue rooms way in the back, or outhouses, typically called blue rooms. In the wildland world is like a camping area. Over here, you're gonna have probably your chow trailer where you get your food, and then a tent where you eat your food. And then over here is gonna be all your logistics and planning and IC command post. So it's all laid out, and you probably have supply over here or over here. We'll get into this a little bit more as we start talking about some of these things, but I'll just mention it briefly here. When you arrive, your engine boss has some stuff to do. So it's okay if you take a radio after clarifying what channel you can be contacted on and go figure out where stuff is so you can make the morning operations run smooth. Right, so we're talking about all this stuff you need to be, or packed to be ready for the assignment, and it's also important that you have some of these comfort items for your red bag and a personal bag. You got to have some sanity on these rolls. So comfort items in your red bag, some recommendations. Bring a pair of tennis shoes. Okay, it's especially nice to get out of them, let your feet breathe a little bit. And also, if you get assigned on a severity assignment, you may have the option to work out every morning at the host agency's station. So that's always nice. Extra snacks, high protein snacks, nuts, dried fruit, granola bars, Cliff bars. Super important that we're trying to eat as healthy as we can on these assignments, because just like working 48s, you could get that big call at any second. So having the right food in your stomach is going to help you perform, as well as hydration, right? Can't drink enough water on these rolls. Speaking of hydration, powdered Gatorade or other electrolyte mixes, very much preferred. Keep that salt level up, right? We know not to pound Gatorades all day though, right? Because that'll throw salt levels off. Mixing that with maybe 50-50 water Gatorade is preferred. And then I started carrying salt tabs just to keep my salt levels up. I felt like it really helped me out on those long duration incidents. And you can get those REI, any kind of outdoors camping store, REI, Jack's, online. And this is almost an essential item, especially if you plan on showering at a incident command post, to shower shoes. Okay, there could be anywhere from 200 to 1,000 people at some of these camps. Just imagine you're sharing a shower with all those people. And you'll get the picture when you see some of these people who are walking around, but shower shoes, wear them in the shower so you don't catch the athlete's foot or whatever else is going around. It's just a nice thing to have. And then specific to our trainees, task book with evaluator pages, if you have one. So it's super important that you bring this so we can check off assignments as you're completing them. I know as an evaluator, if my trainee comes up to me and says, hey, sign this stuff, and then he doesn't have an evaluator page, it just delays the process and it looks unprofessional. So if you have a task book, I've talked to you about the evaluators page. Just make sure you're bringing that in your red bag so you have it with you. Last but not least, the workout clothes. So you can put on your tennis shoes, put on your workout clothes, and get your mind right while you're on assignment. Personal bag. So I bring this driver's license, red card, and the Wildland credit card up a few times in this presentation. You must bring those 3 items. Okay, super important. You can get kicked off the incident if you don't have them. We need to prove who you are and that you're qualified to be there. And then the Wildland credit card, we discussed it in detail in one of the SOPs, but that is our lifeline. Okay, we don't expect you guys to put 14 days of hotels on your personal credit card. Okay, that's why it's there. If you run into any sort of financial issue and you can no longer buy food with your own credit card or debit card, the Wildland credit card is there to make sure you're taken care of. Okay, that was one of the big pushes the team put out, and it was accepted by senior leadership, and it's a good thing. So let's not abuse that. We'll be able to track what's being spent and who has checked that card out. But it's there for our benefit to make sure we're taken care of.
Receipts also.
Absolutely.
Gotta have them.
Yep. Gotta have the receipts, especially for your hotel rooms. So this bag can usually stay in the cab of the apparatus that you're driving with. And it's just gonna have comfort items. You got your phone charger, you got your headphones, you got your books, you got your snacks, change of clothes. I always like to throw change of clothes in my personal bag so I didn't have to lug in my red bag. But again, that's personal preference, just ideas. And I always like to carry a little bit of extra cash on me just in case we do go to that remote town and their credit card machine is down. So you got that cash, you can make your purchase and be on your way. Also, this app, Avenza, super awesome app. A lot of the big incidents are using it now, if not all of them. It started to come out my last couple of years with the Forest Service. But essentially, you can download the map of the incident, and it's an interactive PDF. So you can see where you are within that incident, and it is usually displayed as a topographic map. So you can read the ridges, read the drainages, drop pins, take pictures, upload them to the map, and then you can save them. And it's just a cool feature that we have now with Wildland Fire. So I encourage all you guys to download that. You know, I believe it's free with up to 3 maps. unless you want to pay the monthly fee. I'm not sure how much it is, but I've always just utilized the free version. All right, check it out, dude. That's me right there fighting some ground cover fires up in the sticks. Pretty sick. All right, let's walk through the process and discuss how an order for deployment comes in and how it's processed. So here's an example. A new fire starts in California. The resources on the fire need more help to contain the fire. The Geographic Area Coordination Center, otherwise known as the GAC, receives requests for more resources from the IC of the incident. And like I said before, I'm not going to click on these links because I want to keep uploading the presentation. But that website there gives you a map of how the United States is broken up into different regions. Each region has a GAC, and then they also have little, like, consider them like smaller branches of that GAC to break that region down. It's essentially a dispatch center. So orders go to the GAC from the IC, and then from that GAC, the GAC in California, they send that request to the GAC, which is down in Denver for us, for available resources. Then from that GAC, or that request for more resources, comes through Fort Collins Interagency Dispatch. Okay, any order that we receive is going to be coming from Fort Collins Interagency Dispatch. They're based out of Fort Collins. We also have a interagency dispatch in Pueblo that has their kind of area, their boundaries that they deal with. And then there's another one in Grand Junction that covers the rest of the state. So we can prioritize what resources are available, also looking at what resources are closest to the fire. So then FTCID then looks to see what is available in their area. And we will be available soon. And then FTCID contacts RBC or ABC with one of our IGA partners and or the engine boss, confirms the order, the personnel for the order, and emails a resource order to the engine boss filling the order. Okay, that resource order is like our ticket into the incident. If we don't have that and we show up, they will turn us away. I believe in our RT-130 Zoom training, we had some kind of generic resource orders. We had John Stevie print up over at Fort Collins Interagency Dispatch. The resource orders that we get will have the person's actual name and their qualifications on there. And we need to make sure that that stuff is spelled correctly and that our qualifications match up to our red card, which they should. It uploads automatically, but it's something always to think about and look for if it isn't correct. Any questions on this or added info easily?
Nope, I got nothing.
All good here.
Cool. All right, example of a 14-day assignment. So we got to separate the travel to from the working or work to the travel home. It's essentially, depending on how you look at it, it's either 3 or 2 different categories. Because it's kind of confusing, but we're going to walk through it. All right, during your week to be available for assignment, you could leave at any time. Okay, that time has nothing to do with your 14-day assignment. That just means that you've committed yourself to a week to be available. So during that week, like we said on the bullet point here, you can leave at any time. So those afternoon hikes may be tough to get to because you're out of cell phone service. Hanging out with the guys and gals doing late nights could be an issue because you could get a call and you could have to leave early in the morning or at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So we really do need to be available and ready for that assignment for that 7-day period. So in total, with your 7-day availability period after you sign up, you could be gone for up to 18 to 20 days with travel. So the way it works, so plan your personal life accordingly. I'll pull up this thing here. This will help a little more. So here, if we leave on that Monday, June 1st, okay, so that would be our first day of travel. And then you'd have a second day of travel. So you'd have 2 days of travel, the first and the second, possibly. You would work the third through approximately the 14th or 15th, and then you would travel home either the 15th, 16th, or 17th. So you travel 2 days to the assignment, you get assigned to whatever division or whatever you get assigned to it. Tongue-tied, you get assigned to the incident, right? You get an actual job to do. When you start performing that work the very first day that you are assigned, that is your day 1 of your assignment. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay, so day 1,
I got a quick question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are they being more strict on the travel days with traveling? Are they getting more strict on? Because I know we used to just push as hard as we could to get there, and as short from
we can't travel past 9 p.m. and we can't travel before 6 a.m.
Yep, and you can't, they say in incident management or the business management handbook, no more than 10 hours of drive time, no more than 2 hours consecutive one driver can drive. Okay, so that's the rules written in the business management handbook. We used to fudge those all the time. But if you were to get caught and you were to get in an accident or any other thing were to happen, that would be liable for that engine boss to get, that closed door meeting and tough conversations had. So that handbook is available. I can share with you guys, but there's a whole bunch of rules in there. But we need to follow those rules, is what I'm trying to say, because should the unfortunate happen, that's why those rules are in place.
So to also go into this calendar a little bit more, so we have 7-day availability. If you leave on June 7th, your last day being on call, that pink, you can see projected, you're coming home the 22nd, 23rd. So if you sign up the first 7 days in June, you kind of have to schedule your life out to the 23rd. So it just kind of gives you an idea of what's affected for those days you sign up.
A good point, Easily. So essentially, it's just under a month that you're signing up for when you put your name down on the availability list. Does everyone understand that?
Yeah, that's much better to hear it that way. Thank you, Easily.
Yep.
Yeah. Now you gotta have that whole month ready.
Yeah, just it's that long, it's that marathon, right? Like you're planning out farther than like you expected. So
Cool. And I'll work on maybe building out, or Easily and I will work on building out a calendar that references that 7-day availability with your assignment, with your travel, and share that with you guys. All right. So our first SOP we're going to review We will have a PDF version available soon. Currently, they're in the editing phase or final editing phase. Hopefully, we see those turn into the PDF version sooner than later so that you guys can print them off and review them more intently. This SOP acts as an outline for what is expected from all members while on assignment/deployment. Let's review it together. And my screen is going to do this thing again, I imagine. So we might have to upload that presentation again, but that'll be okay because this stuff's important. Like I said, these are in the final stages of being done. We've gone through them countless times. I'm feeling good with sharing all this with you. Chief Cronel gave me that direction. So as long as it loads. Come on. Perfect. So these aren't too long. How do you guys want to do? You want to read them together? I mean, I can read it, or you guys can kind of read it on your own, and then what do you think's best?
Hey, Chris, maybe just kind of hit some of the critical points on these.
Okay.
I don't know that everybody's screen is going to let them read it in depth.
Perfect. So any qualified employee may be considered for out of district deployments, although employees must be in good standing with the direct supervisor and the Wildland group. We'll discuss good standing in a later SOP. We're going to follow all NWCG and NIFC guidelines and standards. And then again, any questions or any communication dealing with Wildland needs to come through that Wildland team at frfr.co. Once we release the availability sheet, there will be a time frame in which people need to sign up. As we experienced last year, the sooner you sign up, the more opportunities you have. But let's also be considerate of all team members because all team members want to get out on assignment. We are asking that we do sign up 3 different team members for each 7-week availability in case something should arise. And that number 1 spot can no longer go on deployment. Chief Cronholm and Chief Cavillo worked last year to finalize an IGA agreement, internal government agreement with Berthoud Fire, Greeley Fire, Frederick Firestone, Loveland Fire Rescue Authority, Platte Valley Fire, and Poudre Fire to be deployed with. So those are the agencies that we can be working with if they need a spot filled.
Hey, Frank.
Yeah.
I got a question for you, buddy. Is there any sort of scenario that could arise that we could be sending? You know, we got 3 members signed up for 1 week. Is there any kind of scenario that would arise that we would be sending 2 of those members, or will it always be just 1 person at a time if we're getting deployed?
I think there is. Let's say we have a mutual aid fire in Loveland or Berthoud or even up in Poudre's district, and we send that duty crew, so the Station 1 crew, to go help out that first day. We could call on the Wildland team to assemble and then deploy up to that fire to relieve that duty crew.
Okay.
That's probably the most likely scenario. As far as sending 2 of our members anywhere in the state or on a national level, I think that's highly unlikely to where the team is currently.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
And Chief Cronholm, if you want to chime in, if I was completely off, please do.
I think you're right on track. We've committed to being able to provide one person for a deployment. If other things were to come up as far as mutual aid resources locally, that's going to be addressed kind of on an as needed basis. So just like Chris is saying, we're going to try not to have our 2931 out for 3 or 4 days with that duty crew. So if they work that first operational period and there's a further need, we'll have that discussion about how we may be able to provide that resource or other resources to that fire. Just on the topic of national versus regional and local stuff, the feeling right now is that things are going to try to be kept regional this summer. So probably fewer national requests and more using somewhat local resources to address these problems. So I know Frederick Firestone is only committing to doing regional work this summer with their Type 6.
That answer your question, Richie?
Yeah, it did. Thank you for clearing that up.
Absolutely. The big things, right? We now have our professional standards packet our way. So we need to remember that is followed on and off the clock, on deployment, off deployment. Okay, we're held liable for our actions anywhere we go. All members must have a government issued photo ID and a physical copy of their red card with them on assignment. Okay, there it is again, guys, super important. We kind of talked about this with the previous slide, but once a member's 7-day availability period has begun, your red bag and line gear must be packed. Obviously, during that 7-day commitment, you can leave at any time. You're expected to be able, willing, and ready for said assignment. Then again, we're trying to focus all our communications to streamline and help organize the group leads with that email, wildlandteam@fr.co. Also, emergency contact form. This is super important. This form's purpose is to ensure that the members' needs are met. A chief officer will make contact with those listed should the need arise. And the big thing with this contact sheet, it's not only to, if you have kids or your wife is worried because you're gone, okay, we can set that up to where somebody contacts her and gives her an update to let them know you're doing okay. But then also the unfortunate event that something should happen, it's another way to reach out to family members. And then one of the big things with the Wildland, and my father, bless his soul, he didn't understand the no news is good news. And he decided to call a dispatch center in Southern Colorado when I was working a huge fire. And because his anxious voice, he was able to have the dispatcher contact me via radio on the fire and relay a message saying, hey, call your dad. Now, if you could only imagine the flack that I got for years to come, was pretty impressive. So no news is good news, right? Usually when the phone rings, that's when people start to worry because something's going on. So you need to clarify that with your loved ones, unless you've requested that they be contacted by a chief officer or lieutenant or myself.
And you have to also think of it, guys. There's a high chance where in these remote areas, it's a 2.5-hour car ride or truck ride. no cell service, like there's no contact. So you might think you have service and then you end up not having it and going 4 or 5, 10 days with no way to contact anybody. Camps need internet service and cell phone service to operate. So they get a COW unit, cellular on wheels. So it can get set up, but just let your family members know there's a good chance you might have it and then lose it for a couple days.
Yeah, that's a good point. So then going out on a deployment may depend on what positions other agencies are needing to fill. Example, if you are number 1 on the deployment list as a firefighter type 2, but the host agency needs an engine boss, FRFR will send out an available engine boss. So that's the whole thing. We're working with all these different agencies. So if they need an engine boss, we're gonna send an engine boss. So that means if that engine boss is number 3 for that week on the availability list, we just need to understand that we're trying to get our foot established in this program, and we need to provide the qualifications that are requested to get people out the door. Especially late season engine bosses, there's not very many of them within our area. So we may see some of that come up, but we just need to understand that there's a thought process behind it, and we're not trying to skip over anyone just because. You will be notified by the training BC or on duty BC that
Hey, Chris, I think
so
we lost you.
what's that?
We lost you there for a little bit.
Oh, really? Okay. Were you guys,
About 20.
what's that?
It was for about 20 seconds. We lost you.
Here we go. So going out on deployment with other agencies, they may request an engine boss. And maybe that engine boss is signed up in that 3rd spot for that week. So if you're number 1 and 2, you may get skipped over because that host agency providing the apparatus needs an engine boss. So we need to understand that we're not just skipping over people just because we're just trying to get that apparatus out on the road. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
Cool. And then when an order comes in, the training BC or on duty BC will notify said person that is up to leave. They may not have a lot of information with that initial phone call as far as fire name, state of fire, all that, but they will know where that crew is assembling and where you need to get to. And that's going to be a 2-hour callback to get to that said destination spot. There's a couple different ways that they can play that. Let's say an order comes in at 6:00 p.m., 1800 hours, and it doesn't make sense for that crew to assemble until 0500 the following morning. So that would be a conversation that would be had at that moment to decide if it makes sense to drive for a couple hours, hotel up, and then carry on to assignment that following day, or wait until the next day. So you can't really plan on it always working out smooth. It's always going to be a hurry up and wait. But what we can do to control that is being ready, right? Once we're up for that 7-day assignment or availability list, to have our stuff ready to go. So it takes that little checkbox and we can mark it complete so we can move forward. Expenses and billing. So now this is some really important stuff here. We're going to talk about the Wildland credit card. So members must take the Wildland credit card. All receipts must be kept for billing purposes. Okay, as I spoke about it before, if we do hotel up, we don't want to have any of our team members liable to cover the expense of multiple nights in a hotel room. So that credit card is used as a backbone to make sure that you're taken care of financially. And then we can deal with the back end getting reimbursed for all that stuff. Same with per diem. Okay, per diem is a federal standard that provides a tax-free payback to the employee for purchasing their own meals. Okay, members are going to have this benefit to them. It is also something that should not be abused. But essentially what it does, and there's a link at the bottom of the SOP, and given your geographical location, they have determined a set dollar amount for food broken down for breakfast, lunch, and dinner that you will be paid back tax-free. So you buy your food up front, you keep all your receipts, and you fill out the per diem sheet that will help you track which days were provided and which days were not. And then we submit that to Christine or Cindy when we get home, and they can then, I believe, bill back for that, and then pay you out the correct amount that you were given based on the per diem rates. Does that make sense?
To add to that frame, per diem, what we're going to see per diem is going to be mostly used on travel days. If it's an early incident where they are not providing meals, the incident says you have to go to the local store and buy your own food. Per diem is going to be in effect. If a incident has a catering or has an agreement with a local restaurant to provide food, breakfast and dinner, you cannot put in for per diem. If you try to put in for per diem, the incident will know that there was provided meals and you decided not to eat there. They will not pay you back.
Yep, that's a good point, and clarifies what I was saying. So if the incident, or if you're on a severity assignment and they have an agreement set up and they say you need to eat at these restaurants and you have this dollar amount to spend, that is provided. If they say we are not providing any meals for you guys, you need to plan accordingly, then you can start using your per diem. And we'll release a sheet that goes over breakfast, lunch, dinner, and what was out of your pocket, and then what the incident provided to help clarify all the receipts and the reimbursement portion of it on the back end when you get home. And there's also an app for, it's a GSA website for the per diem, but there's an easy to use app where you can plug in your current location if you have service, and it'll pull up what that per diem rate is. Also, emergency expenses related to the deployment may be put on the Wildland credit card. Members should attempt to contact the on-duty BC or training BC prior to making purchases other than hotels with the Wildland credit card. If this is not possible, you should use your best judgment and confer with the engine boss on the crew. So again, this is taking care of all members for that financial piece. If, let's just say the engine boss, he has a department card and it's getting declined, but we need to get new tires on the vehicle, and it's our best judgment to use our card to provide that dollar amount so we can get back on the road and buy the tires, I think that would be perfectly fine. As well as maybe other emergencies I could think of are plane tickets home if we can't, if admin is unable to take care of that, or unforeseen expenses arise. We need to use our best judgment. Don't have a good example other than the,
Yeah, so that, Chris, really, I mean, we're not a rig that you go out on. The agency that owns that rig's responsible for maintenance and being able to pay for that. We're just talking, like Chris said, it's something unexpected that's critical to your safety or to taking care of the rest of the crew that you're out with. The crews that you're going out with are experienced, and they have department credit cards and they have apparatus credit cards, like we have fuel cards to take care of this stuff. This is really more for Dustin and Chris, who may be going out as an engine boss and need to take care of an expense for their crew that was unforeseen. We're trusting you folks to take care of this. Just know that we want you to call in and clear that expense if at all possible. But again, we trust you and trust that you're going to take care of the folks around you.
thank you for the clarification, Chief. And then planning for and returning from deployment. So we could go out for 14 to 21 days for a work assignment, right? So that's 20 days on the fire. And travel on either end. So that's longer, right? That could be over a month that you're gone with that 7-day availability. And that's usually a conversation that's had usually at the beginning of the assignment on travel out. And we'll know as members that we are cleared to do a 21-day assignment, and that a lot of that is based on your personal life. If you have something going on that you can't miss, you need to voice that so you're not stuck on an assignment for that 21-day period. But it is a possibility, so have that in the back of your mind. A big thing that always gets missed upon returning is you must return all department gear in a clean state, restock, and ready for the next member to leave. Okay, I hope that when you leave, your gear is nice and clean, because that's the way it should always start. When you return that, or when you return from assignment, all your gear must be cleaned and put in a ready state. Some of the big ticket items that we need for billing purposes, and a lot of these are done electronically now, is you need to obtain a copy of an OF 288. Okay, it's an emergency firefighter time report. And essentially all that is the hours you worked on the incident with the financial code that we need to use to submit for billing purposes. And then also a bonus would be having an SF 261, which is essentially your days worked that is filled out every day. It just tracks your hours per day, and that's turned into finance to create your emergency firefighter time report at the end of the incident. You could get multiple emergency firefighter time reports if you go to multiple fires on your deployment. That is part of the whole demo process when they release you, and then you also get another order to go to a fire, a different fire that has a different incident number, that has a different financial code. So we need to keep track of these, and your engine boss will help with that. He should have a briefcase to organize all this and give you a packet when you're all done. But you can use this as a reference, saying that we need that emergency firefighter time report for billing purposes. It's a huge thing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yep.
Hey, Chris, we're about an hour in. You want to take a quick break?
That sounds amazing. And I could have time to upload all this.
All right. Everybody back on, ready to go at 2:10. 5 minutes.
Copy.
Hey, Chris. Hey, folks at Station 1, who all is in attendance there at Station 1? Oh, they're all gone.
Chief, Station 2, it's Nieto and Gisick.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Chief, I think I saw a boar at Station 1.
Okay.
Connor,
And Rodriguez.
I believe so.
Cool. Thank you much. Hey, Chris.
Hello?
Hey.
Did I make it back in time?
Yes.
It's going pretty good,
Hey.
huh?
Yeah. For the next, these other two SOPs,
Yeah.
I don't think we need to get super in depth on all the positions and everything.
Okay.
Just, I think if folks want to start looking at a type 1 task book, that they need to come chat with one of us and we can kind of lay that out for them.
Okay.
But,
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think it'll help them once they're released too, to where they can actually read them
Yep.
and print.
Yeah.
And, yeah. But just
Yep.
talk about the whole initiation checklist.
That even, we'll certainly get into that when we start having folks go through that.
Uh-huh.
I think as long as they know that they've got some mandatory courses that they need to take before they open the task book, I think we'll just kind of leave it at that for now. Like I said, based on mandatory classes and that kind of stuff, we're not going to have anybody probably opening task books this summer.
Yep.
So.
Hey, Chief, hold on, it's Pooty. Sorry, I didn't mean to
Yeah.
interrupt.
Hey,
I'm
no, go ahead.
dropping on this section of the conversation here. The
Yep.
Certifications, are we going to open up opportunities for guys to go out and get additional certifications, or is that going to be something not as targeted for
You're
training?
thinking like Sawyer or Engine Boss stuff?
Yeah, Sawyer, maybe some helicopter crew member training, just to get an idea of the opportunities to open up different task books, given taking said classes that correspond with it.
So kind of the overall plan, and I'll let Chris hit on this when he gets into it, is a lot of this is going to be tier 3 training. And kind of opening a task book is going to hinge on people taking the initiative and taking some of these required classes before opening the task book, so that you've put a little equity into it before we open that up and start looking for assignments for you to satisfy some of those task book requirements.
Absolutely, I totally agree, and thank you for clarifying that, Chief.
Yeah, but yeah, absolutely. This is a program that we're trying to build, and so yeah, if you want to work on some helicopter ops or get into Sawyer stuff or work on your Engine Boss, we'll certainly do our best to provide opportunities for that. All right, Chris, it's all yours.
All right, moving on. How's everyone's break?
Splendid.
Splendid. I honestly wasn't watching the clock, so I appreciate Chief Cronholm stepping in there, because I would have just powered through it, and I'm sure some of you guys were like, when is this going to end? But we're getting close. So it's 2:12 right now. I'll start paying attention to the clock here, and if we're running long, we'll throw another break in there, guys, or speak up if you need to take a break for whatever reason. So now we get into what should go into our line gear. So minimum of 4 quarts of water. Okay, so 4 quarts, right? 1 gallon of water. It's honestly not a lot of water for the amount of workload that you could endure on a fire. One of the advantages of being an engine module or an engine crew on a fire is that you got your engine right there, and you probably have drinkable water somewhere on there to refill. But if we're going to be working away from that truck for any extended period of time, we need to have enough water to make sure we don't become dehydrated. So that's a standard 4 quarts. Is going to be putting your line gear empty. It is your job to fill them up before you leave. And this is Engine Boss dependent as well. It was bred into my upbringing in the wildland that we always carried 1 to 2 ready-to-eat meals in our pack at all times. And that's just to cover our butts if the big one happens, and we need to be ready for that. So we need to have that food with us. They're not always the most tasty meals, but they will provide calories and fuel for you to complete the tasks. Flagging. So last year we purchased a bunch of flagging. It's kind of preloaded into the line gear right now. So you should have that in your gear. Pink for escape routes. It either says escape route on there or just pink. And then orange or hazard flagging, hazard tree flagging are the 2 most common. There we go. Space blanket. So does anyone know what a space blanket is?
Nope.
It's just a survival blanket, isn't it?
It's just a survival blanket.
Oil looking ones.
Yeah, it's a little bit thicker than those like those little tin foil like emergency blankets you might keep in your car. Can be used for multiple things to make a rain cover. If you're out on the line, you can string it up to some trees, get yourself out of the elements. You can lay on it in your tent, helps to keep insulated. Just kind of an all-purpose blanket, but we have, I believe we bought 3 or 4 last year, so those should be in your line gear for deployment. Snacks, okay, can't mention it enough, but we all eat different amounts. So you provide your own snacks while you're out on these deployments. And also the incident's pretty good about having snacks lying around that you can stock up on. Toilet paper, wet wipes. Want to keep those close. Don't think I need to go into that. And then handkerchief. You know, a lot of the environments that we're working in on the wildland is dusty, smoky. It's nice to have a filter. Sometimes you're not breathing in all the junk. Your light raincoat, extra shirts. It's always nice to have a compass. Depending on how this program develops, I'm hoping maybe FRFR will buy us compasses. But as of right now, we're not. Anytime you're in the woods, I always carry a compass. I'm sure a lot of you guys have your personal. It's a good idea to bring it. Multi-tool as well. You never know when you're going to need it to cut something, to pry something. So bring your multi-tool. Headlamp. That's also something we'll probably look at in the near future. I know there's some floating around on the engines. But as far as taking one of those for an off-forest assignment, or I'm sorry, off-district assignment, that has not been approved yet. If that changes, I will definitely let all of you know. So get your camping stuff, grab a headlamp to bring with you. This is a big one, guys, extra boot laces. Especially if you have leather laces that you haven't taken care of, they can snap. Then your boot's not fitting right. I'm looking into ordering a big spool of 50/50 cord. It can be used for multiple things, also shoelaces. It's nice to have a backup set in case your shoelace breaks. Could put you out of service for that operational period if no one has a solution. Any questions on that?
Nope.
No, Chris.
Just to bring up for everybody, headlamp is huge. We have an afternoon lightning strike coming through about 2 o'clock. Get ordered up to go to Loveland or Berthoud, and we don't get on the road until 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're working well into the night. So we hike up during the day, and we hike down at night. So that headlamp is huge. You don't think we'll be on the hill that late, but walking down at midnight is going to be pretty tough. Definitely prepare for it.
Yep, that's a good point. And it's been a while since I've had to, at least when 32 was over at Station 1, there was some headlamps floating around in there for that, that scenario where the on-duty crew goes. I'll work on figuring out if they're still there, if they've gone missing, and we'll get those placed into the line gear. All right, so travel to an assignment. Okay, typically takes 1 to 3 days depending on where the assignment is. In the wildland arena, the engine boss is equivalent to a lieutenant. They are your boss while you were on that wildland fire. Okay, so they got the experience. They've got the slideshow of past incidents. So we need to trust in their judgment and treat them with such respect. Your engine boss will give you a briefing before or on the way to the assignment. They'll clarify, what's the fire's name, where we're going, what route we're going to be taking, are we going to hotel up? They'll kind of outline this stuff for you on the way to the assignment. That's really your time to build that relationship with that engine boss and start trading stories, and you get comfortable with each other too. Have your incident response.
Awesome. Hey, Brian, I think we lost you.
Have the purple IRPG.
Fran, we lost you.
Oh my gosh.
Right. IRPG right at the beginning.
Okay. So does everyone have an IRPG, the purple cover IRPG?
Yeah.
Cool. So when we're leaving for assignment, we need to absolutely make sure that we're bringing that. What I was talking about is on the way to that assignment, we can be reviewing that and start kind of switching our brain from that structural response to ground cover fires to that bigger picture wildland fire management scenario. Okay, and there's everything you need to know, especially at that beginning level, is within that IRPG, and it's gonna preload some thoughts for you.
Hey, Frank,
Yep.
do you have extra purple IRPGs anywhere?
Yeah. Is that Leche?
Yeah,
What'd you do with yours?
I have two. I'm asking for Board. He's right here too. I'm not sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We can get Boar one. And you too, Leche.
I'm good.
We've got budget for Bohr, not for Rodriguez.
Oh, got him, dude. Absolutely, Boar. I miss your face, dude. Just FYI.
Miss you too.
So again, I'm just touching on that small backpack you can keep within the cab of the rig. All your personal items, right? You'd be amazed at what you missed when everything is taken away from you on an assignment. You kind of forget about a lot of the chaos of the everyday world. So having those comfort items is crucial in my opinion. Again, you must bring your red card. You must bring your state issued driver's license, and you must bring the Wildland credit card. Capiche? And I do apologize about this. I just love the background of this slide so much, and I tried every single color of text, and it's just me being stubborn. So if it's hard to read, I do apologize, but that's a ripping fire. That's the kind of fire you want to go to if you get deployed, because you're going to be there for 14 days and you're going to get a lot of experience. Once you have arrived at the assignment, your 14 days assignment starts when you get assigned and work your first operational day on the fire, or even a severity assignment. And we'll talk about severity here in just a little bit, but I just want to embed that in your guys' head that your 14 days doesn't start until essentially you touch black. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then familiarize yourself with the incident command post once you arrive. So we talked about that earlier in the slide. Make sure you have your radio on you. Make sure you're on the correct channel so that engine boss or that essentially engineer driver can get a hold of you. And so the last thing you want is to get turned around and they're ready to leave and you're, talking to supply about getting or whatever. So what to expect from your engine boss? Okay, your engine boss will outweigh expectations. Your engine boss goes to a briefing every single morning. Okay, well, he usually gets up, he or she either will get up early and go, and then by the time he or she gets back, you will all go to breakfast together. Okay, that's kind of when your briefing will start from the engine boss. They'll talk about what's the plan for the day, what division you're on, and what to expect again, and any supplies that you need to get before you go to the line. Okay, pretty standard. Every day you're going to be getting
Lost you.
Lost you again, Frayne.
Lost you.
cut out.
Yeah.
Where did I cut out? Dang it.
Breakfast,
You-
lunches,
Breakfast.
water.
Yeah.
Cool. So after the morning briefing, you'll go to breakfast as a crew. You'll go to the chow hall, is what it's commonly referred to, or going to get chow. And then after breakfast, it's pretty standard that you go and you get lunches, you go and get water, and you go and get Gatorade and any other supplies that you need for that operational period. So if the incident is providing lunches, do we get per diem for that day for lunch?
Negative.
Negative, no per diem. If we're eating at the chow hall at the ICP, do we get per diem?
Nope.
No.
Nope, those meals are being provided by the incident, so we do not claim per diem. What you always want to hear from your engine boss after he gets back from the briefing is that you need to go to supply and get 5 gallons or 10 gallons of drip torch fuel, because that's going to be a good day. So just keep that in mind.
Sick.
And just keep be fluid with this. It's not gonna always work out this way for getting supplies and stuff after breakfast. It might be ever changing, so just be flexible. I had a time where we waited to get lunches, and there was so many crews. There was 1,500 personnel on this fire, and they ran out of lunches. So we had to scrounge. So just be fluid. Might have to get lunches earlier in the day. Just be ready.
Yep. And that's part of the firefighter 2 and firefighter type 1 to know where stuff is. So, right, we're pre-planning. We're trying to make our engine boss's life easier. You know, it always works out better when you show up to the rig ready to go and he's like, did you get lunches? Yes. Did you get water? Yes. You know, but preload stuff to where it will help the flow of the day. And you will get briefings every day and maybe several times a day. Okay, we'll talk about trigger points. We'll talk about assignments on the way to. Then once we get there, we'll reorganize and we'll, you know, talk about how we're actually going to implement that given the topography of the area we're working in. We'll constantly go over our LCES and where our safety zones are. It's a continual thing. It'll happen multiple times throughout one operational period, and it will always be a little bit different from day to day. So we got to be flexible. We got to adapt well to a changing environment. So kind of discussed most of this, but operations on the fire, the division you're working for, Alpha Bravo Zulu Yankee are kind of for a 4-division fire. That's how they're going to break that up. And then plan for the day, weather, local factors, and anything that comes down from the top about camp life. You know, maybe there's Camp Crud now, maybe there's a COVID outbreak, right? Those are all things with COVID, especially, has changed the way we're going to be operating very, very extremely. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit. So general expectations while working on an assignment. Firefighter type 1. Leche, turn up the hearing aid.
I'm up. What's up?
You are expected to know what signatures you need. Be ready to complete those tasks on the fire line and discuss throughout the entire assignment. So just know your book, and trying to keep one leg up on your engine boss as far as what needs to be done. You may be assigned filling out crew time reports. So those CPRs or the OF-216, that could be a responsibility for that firefighter type training. Also, if we're doing, if let's say we use some of the equipment off our rig and we need to get that resupplied, we can't just go to supply and say, hey, we need, 47 sticks of 1.5 inch hose. We have to fill out a general message, have our boss's boss sign it, and then we can resupply our truck. And that goes with anything that you're going to get from supply. You have to have a reason and a signature from at least your division or task force leader to get resupplied. So that's going to be something that firefighter type 1 trainee and even firefighter 2 can start learning how to make that crew operate more efficiently in the morning.
Those resupply orders, since we won't be going out in our brush truck this season, those resupply orders will be basically signed by the engine boss, right? I'm just filling them out.
Well, let's say we go to a fire in Durango, because that's within our region, within our state, and we're pulling stuff off of their rig. That engine boss could say, hey, you need to fill out a general message to replace all that hose we just put down off of our rig. So
Okay.
it's for whatever rig you're working off of. If we're using our supplies that we brought, we need to resupply them through the incident.
Okay.
And that could be anything from, we showed up with 2 cases of water and now we have a half a case. We're going to take enough water to resupply our truck as if we, with the same amount of items that we showed up with. MREs, water, fittings, hose, anything else that we use on that fire. And it's also your job as a firefighter type 1 trainee to gather supplies, getting items from supply, and then your tactical responsibilities, maybe leading that hose lay that you're now putting in to support some hand line, filling up drip torches, slinging weather, any of those items you're responsible to start thinking about and practice while you're on the fire or around station to get some reps. Especially the slinging weather piece. Where can I find a quick reference guide to explain how to sling weather?
Probably in your RPG.
God, Pooty, you're on it. In the RPG, it has the answers for all that stuff. All the things are in there. And then again, always have a radio on you anytime you're on an incident or an ICP. And then again, become familiar with ICP. Your engine boss will thank you for it. And then as a firefighter type 2, less responsibilities because essentially the firefighter type 2 is the least experienced person on that crew. And they're there to be a sponge, right? To learn as much as they can. So listen to instruction. If you don't know, ask for clarification. You will be asked to gather items, again, lunches, waters, and other items. Always have a radio on you at ICP. Become familiar with ICP. And then I want to just talk about these pictures real quick. This top left picture here, that is a common way that we mop up on fires. We line out and with spacing in between us, and all we're doing is we're walking that fire's edge, however deep into that black, and we're looking for hot spots. And when we find a hot spot, we call it out, everyone stops, you mop it up, you call that hot spot clear, and then you carry on. You can do that for days on a fire. So that's just kind of how it looks. There's not much shade. It's hot. So just wanted to preload that. The wonderful experience of mopping up, we're all gonna experience at some point. The bottom right picture is digging some hand line, or referred to by a lot as digging trench. You're lining out and you're clearing that, all that organic material to mineral soil and creating a fire break. We'll talk about this a little bit more in later slides. So expectations, this is what we expect from you. Give 100% every day you are on assignment. Ask questions. Learn everything you can. And then we got 2 more SOPs. These ones are going to be a little bit more brief. I think you guys will get more out of them on your own time once they are released in the PDF version. But real brief, we'll run through these. So this one, wildland position description and requirements, it just outlines what we're following. So we're following all the federal standards that are set forth by NWCG and NIFC, and there's a whole bunch of them, but it's all federal standards that we're trying to follow here at FRFR. Most of us are firefighter 2s. Oh, let me talk about this real quick, actually. So this is super important, guys. I mentioned in the previous SOP, good standing. So this is what good standing is. To maintain good standing with the Wildland Program Group, all members must be proficient in the position you are qualified in good standing with your direct supervisor, complete an annual RT 130, 8 hours, complete an arduous pack test, which we all did, right? Today's the deadline. And then commit to a minimum of 2 weeks of availability through the wildland season. And this one's really big for me. And I think really anyone who wants to engage in this program is be an active member with the program by providing feedback after each assignment, each training, and at the end of the wildland season.
And just to hit on it, it's going to be 2 7-day 2 7-day on calls. So
yeah,
it doesn't have to be 2 straight weeks.
Yeah, I can change that too. That actually that might read a little better. 2 7-day availability periods.
Hey, Frank.
Sorry to interrupt. Would you guys think that it would be easier to do consecutive availabilities so that way you're not signing up for one, having to be available for a month, signing up for a second one, potentially 2 whole months available? Is that going to be an option, or do you guys want to frown upon that, signing up back to back?
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I mean it's just a minimum. You know, there's probably a maximum, but at least 2 7 minimum. So we have some sort of standard.
And remember too, there's 3 spots per 7-day period. So just because you don't get your name down number 1 spot for both of your required periods doesn't mean it's going to be discredited towards you. You can be number 1, you can be number 2, you could be number 1, and you could be number 3.
Hey, Frank,
Yeah.
that initial sign up, are we going to limit it to where like each member can sign up for 2 at a time and then fill in the rest once everybody gets their name on the list?
I do like that. We've had brief discussion about that. I believe we'll get more direction before we release that sign up. The main point of this program is to get guys who are willing to go on wildland deployments to get that experience. So I think that's a fair comment, Connor. And I personally don't have a problem with that if we put a limit saying you must sign up for your 2 by this date, and then anything extra is fair game. Kind of how we used to work the reserve list back in the day. I like that. So we'll have clarification on that. Good question.
I think that's reasonable, guys. We can maybe do a week sign up, and you can only sign up for 2 spots, and then we'll open it up and folks can fill in whatever's left.
Cool. So real brief with the position descriptions. These come directly off the federal website. This is your roles and responsibilities as a firefighter 2. I'm not going to take too much time to go through it, but there's a link there, that highlighted link where you can click. It'll take you to that website, and you can go through that. So again, it talks about requirements per year you need to do. Same with firefighter 1. The biggest thing here with the firefighter 1 is we now have a list of classes that you must take before you can be considered or request to initiate a task book. So here on the firefighter 1, you have to complete S130, S290, and L280. Okay, those are mandatory to even entertain a discussion to open up a task book. With this program and where we're sitting right now and for the foreseeable future is that all of these trainings will be tier 3. So we want to create a little bit of buy-in and have you invest some of your time to show that you are interested in obtaining these classes to progress. So this kind of outlines it, what you need. And then also for Engine Boss. And once those classes are done, it's in the next PowerPoint, but or in the next SOP, but there's a process to which you can submit to request the initiation of your task book. Real quick, before I switch back, any questions on this?
Nope.
Negative.
All right, so this next SOP gets kind of in depth of how we are opening task books. And we've created a process that is the employee or the team member's responsibility to filling out completely and submitting it to Wildland team at frfo.co for the group leads to review. Come on, load up. With everyone homeschooling in my neighborhood, the bandwidth is just crud.
So to kind of review the process, so pretty much everybody in the audience right now is a firefighter type 2. if you're wanting to look into opening a firefighter type 1 task book, there are some courses that you need to take prior to doing that. And just like Chris says, that kind of puts a little bit on you folks as far as showing that you're committed to doing that and going out of your way to take some courses. Those are typically offered in the off season. So this summer, really, Zach has an open type 1 task book. Everybody else is going to be going out as a firefighter type 2 this summer. And then if you're interested, we can talk about when and where those courses may be offered over the off season, kind of starting this fall.
Yep, and unfortunately, this isn't outlining or not loading, so I don't want to take up any more time. But you know, that to initiate a task book, like Chief and I said, you need to complete the courses that are outlined in that first SOP we just looked at, and then there's going to be initiation task book request that you need to fill out, and then from there, we'll kind of outline to see where we're at and if it makes sense to have more trainees.
And part of this process isn't to deliberately limit people's advancement. It's just kind of an acknowledgement that there are limited opportunities to send people out as trainees. And once you open the task book, you're on the clock to get all those signatures done within the 3-year period. So we don't want 25 type 1 trainees at the same time and then not be able to get anybody through all of their sign-offs within that 3-year period. So we don't anticipate denying people opening task books, but it's going to be the job of the program group to really vet and just make sure that we're not going to overload our IGA partners by sending out 2 type 1 trainees every single time they ask for somebody.
Yeah, we're turning to a disservice to you guys if we let everyone be a trainee. So we gotta regulate it a little bit until more opportunities arise and the program grows. So sorry about that, guys. That Wildland position task book SOP didn't pull up. Any questions, you guys can reach out to me through text or right now if you have questions to help clarify that. But now we have direction for the program development and for all you guys to reference. So it's not as gray as it used to be, I hope.
Sweet.
So here's just some big camps. This is an aerial view of what it may look like and where you could be living for 2 weeks or 21 days. Usually have security at the entrances, so not just anyone can come in. And it's a little city. You have everything from clothes washers, most times, to showers, to a chow hall, to some of the bigger teams bring in their RV trailers so they can sleep comfortably. Designated camping grounds there in the grass. It's pretty impressive.
And real quick, that large photo there, it almost looks like it's in a mobile home park to the right there. So we're integrating into the community. So you can just imagine the impact these residents have with 1,000+ people showing up in a couple days. So keep that in mind also.
Yeah, that's a good point. We're going to someone else's home when we kind of take over, unfortunately. But that's just the way it is. We got to be respectable. This picture down here, and then notice off to the we'll just call that the north. Right. So camps are typically set up pretty far away from the incident in most cases. But also This is our go-to spot here. This is the supply. So we have to get all of our stuff and load it up, and then we have to drive to the incident. And that's probably the most dangerous thing that we do on these is driving to and from. So I just want you guys to keep that in mind. If you're tired and you're expected to drive, speak up, let someone else drive. We don't want any accidents happen from the camp to the incident itself. Here's a picture of a typical supply unit or food unit. They bring in the big trailers and they have a lot of things on pallets. Okay, it's usually roped off or that orange netting to not allow just anyone to come up and grab stuff because people will. Just kind of an idea of what it looks like on the ground level. It's kind of hard to see here, but you got a hand washing station back here. It is expected that all people at ICP wash their hands before an incident, and that was before COVID-19 was ever around. It just helps keep the germs at bay with people living so close together. And then just here's a few more pictures of some large fire camps. Also not uncommon that you're sleeping on athletic field of a school or at the local baseball diamonds. Hopefully they shut the sprinklers off, but that's not always the case. Just some things to think about. Just another picture of ICP camp in the middle of the day. Here's another picture. This is typically how all the rigs are going to be lined up. They try and keep it organized. A lot of times they'll have someone telling you where to park as that lot fills up.
That photo there is High Park, and there's Horsetooth behind.
Oh yeah, right there.
Background.
There's the dam. Cool. So different types of assignments, right? So we've talked a lot about going to that big, large campaign fire. That's not always the case. So severity assignments. The crew is ordered to help support a fire district. There's a large fire on their district and they need us to backfill and or stockpile resources in the event more fires start. So this is that type of assignment where you're going to report to probably a BLM, a Forest Service, or a National Park Service station. They're going to give you guys all a really good briefing of over the local factors and what's to be expected. And you're essentially just waiting to have a new start or get another order to go to that large fire that's already burned in their district. This type of assignment could be the assignment where you're staying in that hotel every single night and you're using per diem every single day because that local district isn't providing you any food or lodging. I've also been on these assignments where they expect us to camp. So they point us to a campsite and we set up camp every day and we break down camp every morning so that we're available for that fire if it happens or that new order that comes in. A fire district is expecting to dry out / have heavy lightning. These areas generally are busy, have busy fire seasons every year. So I just labeled a few that I've been to multiple times. The Arizona Strip, Western Montana, Winnemucca, Nevada, and California is pretty big on stockpiling resources for their fire load that they experience just about every year.
Idaho and South Dakota.
South Dakota is another big one. Out of all those places, my favorite place to go is Western Montana. I could be cool with never going to any of the other ones. So typically crews stay in hotels and live off per diem, but that's not always the case. That'll be discussed in that briefing you get from that fire district. I talked about this already. Crews could camp and eat provided meals. So it's always all right, we'll wait for clarification. And this is the one where workout clothes, in my opinion, are very nice to have because your day will start off kind of normal in most cases, and you could potentially get a workout in. Again, keeping in mind what you may be doing the rest of the day, so not pushing yourself too hard and making sure that we're staying hydrated and eating correctly on these types of assignments. Advantages to this type of assignment. You get to IA a fire that goes big or goes to a type 1 or type 2 incident command team. It's always an awesome experience when you're on a type 5 fire and there's 3 engines on it. And by the end of your first operational period, they've ordered that type 3 team, or they've already ordered that type 2 team to start mobbing to that fire to help manage it. It's pretty cool to see that org chart develop and everything show up. Or you have multiple fires in your 14-day assignment, right? A lot of experience being able to go to multiple fires in that 14-day assignment. It's good stuff. Staging camp. I don't know if Easley's ever been to one of these, but I've been to a few and they're not fun. I'll be honest with you guys. Easley?
I sure haven't.
They're terrible. I was down in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I stayed 4 days in one of these before we got reassigned, and they decided to put camp on a huge asphalt parking lot, and you could not leave until you got a new assignment. So you camp at this ICP, so you'll respond in just like a normal incident. You'll check in, and then they'll crack the whip and tell you everything that you could possibly ever want is within this chain link fence or this boundary of this school, and you will stay here until you get another order. It's very similar to a severity assignment, except all the stuff I've already mentioned, and they are trying to stockpile resources. So they're expecting a heavy fire load, whether it's their time to burn or there's lightning coming in or fuels have been drying out for way too long. It's only a matter of moments before a big fire starts. Lightning, extremely dry fuel, etc. would be the reasons. Once checked into the camp, you don't get to leave unless you get a new order for an active fire or severity assignment. So that's the goal. If you're going to a pre-po camp and they're operating it as the ones I have experienced in the past, it's only a matter of time before you get that new order and you get to leave. The reason they keep all the resources kind of contained is they don't, well, essentially what happens when you have 500 firefighters roaming the town with no rules? Typically someone's making a bad decision, and unfortunately someone did prior years, and that's why they started grouping these camps together. Advantages, I think I already talked about this. It's only a matter of time before you get a new assignment. Typically a large fire or a severity assignment. All right, guys, we're getting to the end. You guys want to take a break or push through?
Let's keep going.
Good. Let's keep going.
Okay, we're getting close, guys. We're coming up on an hour, so I appreciate your patience. IA, initial attack. You're going to hear that quite a bit. Spiking out. That's where you're staying the night near the fire. So that's where I was talking about those sling loads. That could be one of the options that they set you guys up with, and they'll actually bring your gear to you, or an initial attack fire where it doesn't make sense to hike out. And that's more of a coyote camp where you have minimal supplies, but you're staying close to that fire.
And it's getting more common. An incident management team taking care of 3 to 4 fires. The ICP might be located in a central location, and then it just takes too long to drive from camp. You might drive 2 hours to the fire. It doesn't make sense to have crews on the road that much, so they'll make a spike out camp in a smart location close to that fire, so you're not on the road.
Yeah, and in my opinion, the spike out is the best way to do wildland fire. I love it. Small groups. You're with your current crew, maybe one other that's close by, but you make a camp and food gets brought to you, or you're eating MREs and you're just hanging out. It's the best.
And automatic 16-hour days.
Yep.
No questions asked.
Yeah.
If you work 10, you get 16s.
Yeah, and that'll be direction from your division too. That's pretty standard. Handline, a process to remove organic material to mineral soil. So that's all we're doing. We're scraping away the stuff that can burn to the stuff that won't burn. If you go up to Oregon on the western slope in the Cascades, good heavens, you will scrape organic material away till you have piles. But it's still a lot of fun. Direct attack or handline. Fighting fire as close to the fire's edge as possible, safely. Right, we talked about that in our RT-130 this year. Right, we're fighting fire close, or we're fighting that fire close enough to where we have good black. Right, a good black equals potentially good safety zone, and we're going along the fire's edge to contain that with minimal vegetation burning. Indirect attack or indirect handline, a method of wildland fire suppression where control lines are located and prepped some distance away from the main fire edge, sometimes using natural features, and intervening fuel is burned out. So indirect, it's also the most dangerous form of attack because you have a lot of fuel in between you and the fire. A lot of times these are plans that are put together at the operations and planning level, and then implemented to the division to make sure they make sense, that they meet the topography needs and crew needs. A lot of times after they do an indirect attack on a big fire, there is a big burnout operational period or periods where they light it all off and it sucks to the main fire, and it's super impressive to watch. Essentially what they're doing is they're just creating a big box around that main fire and then managing it from a position back away from the edge of the fire. Coal trailing, a method of controlling a partly extinguished fire edge by carefully inspecting and feeling the edge of the fire with the back of your hand. Um, it was always taught to me, use the back of your hand because you don't want burns on the palm of your hand. Not that you're going to get burns, but if you accidentally touch something that is really hot, that's right on the line, right? We could get a burn on the front of our hand. So we're carefully inspecting, and we're mainly looking for heat right on the line or 5 feet from the line, in case we get wind or it creeps over the line and then starts burning again on the green side of the fire. Common in mop-up, if you get an assignment with mop-up, you will get good at cold trailing or initial attack. Cold line, fire line that has been controlled, the fire has been mopped up for a safe distance inside the line and can be considered safe to leave unattended. Most commonly in our 1 hour fuels or our grass component, that stuff burns up real quick. Once it's burned up, it might be hot for a little bit, but it naturally cools off and doesn't hold heat anymore. Check line, digging quick temporary fire line. Basically, you're just putting that fire in check. Common on IAs, just to get a little piece of line in to help stop that fire progression. It's real quick. You can do a lot of check line with just one person. We're just checking that fire. We all know Indian pack, piss pack, or bladder bag. They're all the same thing. 5-gallon water bag that is carried for mop up. And then with that, water conservation is a big one. Unless we have an unlimited supply, we don't want to be just spraying water to spray water. You can spray a little bit and you mix it up. Spray a little bit more, mix it up. The key to mop up is mixing the hot material with the dirt in the water. And then we're all familiar with progressive hose lays. You could build one from scratch on a fire if your engine boss has been directed to put a hose lay in. So just remembering how that looks. Pretty simple stuff. Any questions on any of that terminology?
No.
Everyone still awake?
Oh.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Moving on. So a sawyer, that is the individual operating the chainsaw. That's a class and some hours in the field cutting trees down before you can obtain that certification. It is a lot of fun. And then the sawyer's best friend is the swamper. A person assisting the sawyer by moving brush and tree limbs. So anything the sawyer cuts, the swamper moves. That is the hardest job, in my opinion, on a fire crew, is being the swamper. Ask Beam about it. He was my swamper once. Bucking, sawing through the bowl after it has fallen. So does that make sense? A standing tree, the trunk, also referred to as a bowl. When you fell that tree and it hits the ground, typically you buck that log up. Limit and bucket. Snag tree, a tree that could fall or present a hazard for crews working in the area. So that's why we're going to have orange flagging, and the engine boss should be on top of this. But if there's a patch of snag trees, typically we try and avoid, or we will avoid working in those areas until we get a felling team in that area to make it safe to work. So the big one with this, if you see snag trees and you're working in that area, voice it, and you should be redirected to back away from that area and to disengage until those snags are taken care of, either from your crew you're working with or someone else on the fire. a cat face, and we got some pictures to kind of explain, or so you can see what a cat face looks like, but it presents a hazard. It's just another, if someone says cat face, you can just picture a snag tree, a hazard tree, and we need to watch out for them. Very common on fires, but it's a tree burnt out at the base, leaving a hollow cavity that makes the tree unstable. A lot of times these trees get mopped up and they're still standing and they're still growing, but they have a huge void within them. So if it's a high fire area, these trees could be standing and still growing, but have this weakened portion of the tree that could present a hazard as well. Widowmaker, top of a tree or large limb hanging in a tree that can fall. So they're very common, especially when you have Sawyer teams going through cleaning up stuff. The tree they're felling will hit another tree and knock off limbs, and then they will be stuck up in that tree that is still standing. Wind gusts, another tree falling can knock that limb out, hit a person. That's why we call it a widowmaker, because they can kill you if big enough. There we go, talking about the bowl again, also known as a tree trunk. And that's it. Now we're just going to go into a little bit of direct hand line, just with some pictures. So right here, I would be perfectly comfortable if I was engine boss and we linked up and we were presented with this fire condition in this picture to do direct hand line. Okay, I would either have hose packs with one of my guys, or maybe hose line if need be. But hose pack would definitely take care of this, and we could put line in around this and contain it. Beasley, any thoughts?
I mean, that looks to be, 3 foot flame lengths with a little bit of 5 foot in there. Even a 2 foot flame length is uncomfortable to be around. So, yeah, we might work there. And if you have to back off to catch your breath and cool off a little bit, it's completely cool with me. And I'm sure it was Frayne as well.
Absolutely. And another way to attack this is actually getting in the black edge and pulling that fire into the black, from the black. Does that make sense?
You got to cheat that black.
Cheat that black. Well, yeah, cheating it would be on the green side a little bit, but you could get in the black and, of course, easily hit on it. I kind of preload that stuff in my own head that it's going to be hot, it's going to be uncomfortable, but this is manageable. But you can get in the black, swing your tool out as far as you can reach, and try and pull that fire into the black. There's multiple ways to do it, but this is what I'm talking about direct.
Kind of foreshadowing for the Fire 2 guys, S290 really dives deep into flame lengths and BTUs provided from certain flame lengths and what is acceptable. Anything over 4 feet, is a no-go for hand line. Anything less than 4 feet is acceptable. I think 4 feet to 7 feet is engine, and then 7 feet and above is like a dozer. 290 really dives deep into that.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's a good point. That's a great class, guys, if you want to take that. Intermediate fire behavior, S290. Super informative. So just, direct is probably the hardest type of hand line to put in. When I would detail with the hot shots and our superintendent would say, we're going direct, we would all put our heads down and be like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go direct. Because it sounds cool, but it's very labor intensive, right? As easily said, you got the heat, you got the smoke, you got to back off every once in a while. But that's the nature of the beast, especially for those hand crew type situations, which technically we're not, but we may be pieced together with multiple engines to create a hand crew. It's a possibility, not saying it's going to happen or it isn't, but we're all about preloading you guys with what could happen. Biggest thing is speak up. If you're uncomfortable with something, your engine boss should respect that and have a different plan to keep you as safe as possible. So indirect handline or operations, obviously that fire front, if someone asked me to drive my engine up to that fire's edge and start putting out fire, I would probably flip them a bird and say absolutely not. So we need to back off from that fire, find natural features or dirt roads, and start prepping those roads and natural features and let the fire come to us, or perform a burnout operations with many other crews to control that fire. Anything you want to add, Easley?
No.
No. And it may not seem like it's dangerous, but seeing how that fire is behaving in that picture, any sort of wind change, not in our favor, meaning wind blowing at us, that could escalate very quick. When you get slope alignment, meaning that fire is now running uphill and spotting over that ridge, doing all sorts of slope reversals and other things that fire does, it can be very, very dangerous. Hey, Pooty, you're in this picture, you dork.
Yep, that's me.
Hey, that's you. So this is the crew me and Pooty worked on. What was that, 2009? This is the middle of the night. We were put on night operations after we initially attacked the fire. It was a long shift. But here we are walking up the hill, probably 8 o'clock at night. We didn't get off that morning till probably 6 or 7. And I don't know about you guys, but I look tired already.
Yeah, that one definitely worked us all really, really hard. That hike down at night was miserable.
Yeah, that was the Dunraven fire. And there it is, just another picture. So as a Sawyer Swamper team, you're going to be cutting stuff that is hot. I cut that tree down, and as you can see on that right side, it was full of embers. I'm creating a cat face. I cut through it and gave it what it wanted, more oxygen, and it started to roast pretty good. So here we go. Some more repeat pictures and a few new ones. Digging some hand line. Here's your cat face. So essentially that fire gets the base of that tree going, and it just starts to eat that tree from the inside out. Both those trees need to come down for the safety of everyone working in that area. Another common thing that we use for building height and collapse zone, right? 1.5 times building height to establish our collapse zone. It's the same in wildland with tree height. So a safe working distance from those trees would be 1.5 times the height of that tree. So just keep that in mind. That picture on the right, that's a pretty tall tree. So until that thing gets taken care of, either burns down and falls naturally or someone is brave enough to go cut it, we're staying 1.5 times the height of that tree away. Here's some pictures of widowmakers. And then over some discussion, the team or the group leads have had over the last couple of days. There's some huge changes coming out with how incident management teams are going to manage fires this summer. So there's new policy on a national and local level that is being written as we sit here. Okay, we got a lot of people thinking about how the heck are we going to do this. Okay, Front Range has been working with our IJ partners to figure out what's the best way to attack this. And so far, Chief touched on it briefly, but we may be staying within the state of Colorado this summer. And what that looks like is we're going to be self-sufficient, meaning we may not be going to these big fire camps because they are cesspools for germs. And self-sufficient means we're going to have enough food on our rig to last for a certain duration of time. And then we're going to need to go to local supermarkets or camping stores to restock the rigs. We're looking at outfitting both brush rigs, 31 and 32, with enough food items for 3 to 5 days currently. In case we do get that mutual aid call, we can take care of ourselves instead of intermingling with the potential to have COVID introduced into the incident. It's tough for me to wrap my head around. I've chatted with a lot of my friends at the Forest Service and what they're doing, and everyone's kind of just kind of waiting, and only they're prepping for the worst and hoping that the best happens. So social distancing is going to be followed on these incidents, and it's going to be direction under the IC and that engine boss making those calls. And as we find out more information about how our team is going to be operating this summer, which will be, I imagine, pretty soon, we will keep you guys informed.
Hey, Chris, just to clarify on that 2931, 2932, we're not going to be sending a rig on resource requests beyond what we typically would for mutual aid. So, Loveland has a big fire, Berthoud has a fire, the places that we would, and that generally that's going to be Larimer County. If we were to send 2931 on a fire out west, the way that this kind of impacts us is we want it to be self-sufficient for a couple of days, because there may be a little bit of a delay, or the incident command team may be using local resources instead of ordering national level resources right away because of some of the impacts of COVID and the way that these events are going to unfold. So that's kind of new for this season. I don't want you guys to be expecting or for the takeaway to be that we're going to be sending our rigs on 3 to 5 day deployments. That is not the intent here. This is to allow our on-duty crews to be self-sufficient for 1, maybe 2 operating periods on a mutual aid type call before they either get relieved or get reinforced or sent home.
Thanks for the clarification, Chief. That's what I meant to say. I just kind of forgot.
With that, are we going to be putting all the equipment that those crews would need on the rigs then?
Sorry,
So the intent there, Connor, is to have food and water and some tents, stuff like that on the rigs. Chief Cavillo's, part of his operational update Monday is going to be some instructions that everyone, regardless of whether or not you're working with the Wildland group for deployments, should have a bag or equipment on the rig with them every shift so that they could be gone overnight on a mutual aid fire. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, so as folks who are prepping for a wildland deployment, you can kind of be that reminder for your crews. Hey, you know, the rest of your crew may not be planning on going on a deployment, but they should every shift be ready to spend the night on, you know, a fire on the west side of Loveland if they need to.
You guys got any other questions over that?
Negative.
Nope, got no questions.
Okay. All this COVID-19 stuff coming out from the type 1, type 2 teams it's all new territory. So let's just, you know, accept the change and push forward with a positive attitude. It's going to be a different kind of wildland season. You know, and only time will tell how it actually turns out. Bada bing, all done. Wait, we're not done. I forgot I put bullet points here. So this is new to all of you. What are your initial thoughts?
I guess I'm apprehensive to see what this COVID and how camp is, and just how a regular dispatch for me, what I remember being versus what the new standard is going to be for all this. This is new to everybody, and I think there's going to be a lot of questions being asked after the initial guys go out saying, this is what it's like, this is what to expect, it's different in these ways. So thank you for all of your effort, Chris, in putting this together. That was a lot of good information.
Absolutely. So Easley and I had a good conversation, and we both have good buddies that work over at Rocky Mountain Fire, and they have a very well-established wildland team over there. And then I spoke with my Forest Service captain, who is on a Type 1 incident management team as a division supervisor. And the way that they're handling these huge out-of-state national deployments is they're both have a chase truck, and they're both carrying 14 days of food with them, water, and any other item that they may need to limit their exposure within the camp. So you can imagine that logistical setup to provide that for crews now of 4 to 5 going out when it used to be 3 to 4 is a huge logistical nightmare. So really we're trying to take these big fires and we're trying to segregate everybody on these big fires now. So you have to be able to support yourself for that long. So it is different, and personally I don't think that we're quite ready to make that commitment. From a personnel standpoint, from a financial standpoint, and just for the well-being of guys who have never gone out, to jump right into a 14-day assignment where you're spiking out and you have all the supplies you need. So it's shocking, really. It's shocking that it's these preventative measures have come up over the last, 5 months.
And speaking with our inner IGA partners, Frederick Firestone and Berthoud, who we could send people out with, they're not going to be sending chase vehicles at this point. Kind of the idea is they may be set up for like 5 to 7 days self-sufficiency, but not looking at putting that extra vehicle into play or going to that full 14 days of self-sufficiency. And so we're really going to be following their lead because they're the ones sending the apparatus out. But that's the message from them right now. And like Chris's slide said, this is being developed as we speak. So obviously that could change, and it could be dictated by what the fire season looks like as well, how severe it is and where the big fires are. So we'll be dynamic with it, but we're really going to follow the lead of probably Berthoud and Frederick Firestone, as they'll probably be the ones that we're most likely to go out with, possibly Platte Valley as well.
Anybody else want to share their initial thoughts?
Excited?
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
you should
I'm
be.
a bit nervous, honestly, just because, not doing this, you want to be sure you're not that guy and screwing up on anything. But, the thought of a 14 to 20 day deployment right now, it's kind of surreal just thinking about it. But it's something, hope we get to experience it, at least a couple of us.
With
Absolutely.
that too, on the experience I had last year, the guys that you go with, like I was with Frederick Firestone, and they were all super supportive, and it was really a nice experience. So for the nervousness, I'm sure even I still have. We're going with a good group of guys, and there's a lot of support there. So, if I forgot something, they were right there to help me out as well too. So.
Wait.
And you guys got to think is, everybody's been in the spot where you're at, first fire, first season. And we are pretty lucky to be around some amazing people, and they're not gonna put you down for not knowing something. They're gonna help you. They're gonna push you to learn. So ask questions.
Yeah, very good. Anyone else?
I know this is a topic that got brought up last year with like actually going on these 2-week deployments. Are we still, is it the red tent and sleeping bags is what the department will provide? And then if we want something different, we can use our own stuff.
Yes, that's correct. So the red tents, some of you packed your bags last year, upstairs in the mezzanine, and then the sleeping bags are floating around. Those are provided. Up to you guys if you want to bring or buy your own sleeping bag and tent. But as of right now, we're going to stick with that plan we had last year.
Good.
And then what do you expect from the Wildland team leads? Is there anything that we missed? Anything that we need to go over again? I want to make sure you guys are well taken care of.
I don't have any expectations besides just good communication throughout the season of this is the changes, this is what we can look forward to seeing, maybe a little bit of like foreshadowing from you guys saying, hey, we got some stuff going on down south. I know a lot of us got stuff going on, so it may not be that we're all aware of all the fires just locally happening. So I guess if you're on the team, it might be also a good time to have that chat on shift a little bit. This is what's going on. This is what we can expect from the current week or whatnot for fire weather or potential incidents becoming larger. I don't know, that's just kind of my thoughts. Is just good communication.
Absolutely. And this is a huge program, not just within a Front Range, but nationally. So the amount of knowledge and websites and information out there it's never ending. But my goal, or our goal, is to send out an email with some of the major websites to where you guys can start familiarizing yourself, but also send out those weekly updates, weekly, bi-weekly maybe, of just, hey guys, this is what's going on nationally. This is where things are picking up. just building that knowledge. So you can expect that, I think, from the leads. Anyone
Just
else?
a reminder, if you have questions, email that Wildland team at FRFR email. That way, myself, Lieutenant Jennings, and Firefighter Frayne and Easley will all get that message, and one of us can respond as appropriate. Also, today is deadline for getting your pack test done and sending your email to that email address if you're interested in being involved this summer. Right now, we're probably looking at a June 1st date of starting that availability sheet. That's still not set in stone, but if you're starting to look at calendars, that's right now kind of where we're at with it. So June 1st.
Very good. Well, guys, thanks for your attendance, and be safe this summer.
Thanks,
Hey.
Frank.
Hey, Chief Cronholm, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
What'd you say about, so we got my pack test done. What's the other thing that we needed to do that's due today, you said?
You got to send an email to that address saying you're interested.
Okay.
So,
All right.
Yeah, Chief
yep.
Cronholm
And you
sent out
guys
an
can
email.
reference the email I sent out beginning of the month for all the things that are necessary if you want to be going on or being available for deployments this summer.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you,
Station,
Dustin. Thank you, Frayne.
Station 1, confirm that's Boer, Rodriguez, and Cavillo.
Correct. Yep.
Cool. All right. I've got everybody down on the attendance list. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks for the
Thanks, guys.
class.
Awesome.
No problem, guys.
Through this, any questions, give me a call or shoot an email out. I appreciate your participation. It's going to be a good season, even with the COVID stuff. We'll figure it out, and hopefully we still get out.
Cool. Thanks, Frank. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Easily. Thanks.
All right, you guys take care.
Yeah. Bye-bye.